Hello. Rather concerned at going last that someone would have done my speech. Fortunately, they haven't. And I hope this isn't the last husband-wife 1-2, because I think she did quite well. Sorry, I'm going to have to get this. It's really rock and roll, isn't it? Just to put that one to rest, I did used to manage pop bands. They were shit, I was shit, and that's why you've never heard of any of them. And that's probably why I'm a builder now. But anyway, it was a very nice dream. I did follow that dream, by the way. Yes, I'm glad I did it. So I'm going to ask you a little bit of exercise, a couple of questions. I had to write these down because I keep forgetting them. If you could indulge me, I'm going to ask you to respond to, I'm going to make a couple of statements, ask some questions. If they apply to you in any way, could you please raise your hand and keep it up? If any of them are really embarrassing ones, just put your hand up after a nicer question. But anyway, there shouldn't be many of them. So if you could please put your hand up if any of you or anyone you know or love has ever had their heart broken. Has anyone been through a major split, a divorce or a separation? Keep your hands up. Has anyone been through severe financial difficulties? As a builder, has someone not paid a big invoice? That kind of heartwarming stuff. Have you ever suffered a serious injury, or anyone you know, or experienced, or of anyone you know experienced mental illness? Have you ever lost a loved one through suicide or an accident, or anything like that, or anyone you know who matters to you? And one that's quite appropriate here, have any of you actually lived through a natural disaster? If you just want to spend a sec, keep your hands up if you could, seriously, just look around. Pretty much everyone here has got their hand up. Those who haven't, you lucky bastards, but generally, most of us have, and I think this is where my little talk starts. I can't do this. Shit happens. It's a very big part of life. It's a factor of life. If you're living, shit's going to cross your path at some stage. It doesn't discriminate. It just hits you. And there is not a lot we can do about it. What we can possibly do is have some control of how we react to it. But the shit is going to happen. And don't be surprised. I think a lot of you will probably know the story of my family, a bit of a shocker. Just 5.5 years ago, at the Queen's birthday weekend, our little 12-year-old daughter and her friend Abby, so my daughter was Abby, her friend Ella, and Ella's mum Sally, a very good friend of ours, all died in a fatal car accident on Thompson's track. As shit goes, that's pretty good. That's about as big as, certainly as big as I'd ever come across, and it was a shock, and it was horrible. And I still live with it. It doesn't get easier. I don't think you're going to hold me to 4 minutes because I'm the last speaker. So I'll speak a little slower. In that moment, you are in shock. Things have happened to you that you don't think are going to happen to you. You quite selfishly believe they happen to other people, ideally in other countries. But when it first started, in amongst the shock was that knowledge that we were in a survival situation. My wife, Lucy, who some of you will have come across, had been for some time in the field of well-being and resilience academically, so we had knowledge on our side. One piece of advice from a mate who came forward at about the time, they'd had a stillborn child 2 weeks before the due date, and that's pretty up there as well. He'd gone for help, good on him, and he'd been told, view your grief as a circle, if you will. What's your life at the moment? And he drew a circle on the paper and he coloured it all in. His whole life was grief. The advice he got back was, right, that's not going to change size. That's a constant. What will hopefully change is through life, your life grows around it. So one message, get real. My situation was extreme and I obviously sincerely hope no one has to come up against it. But you have to get real about the challenge. The grief wasn't going to go away. Time isn't a healer. Time's a diluter. The actual pain is still there. Now this applies horror things like that and everyday horrible things. I'm a builder and I think there's a good building contingent here tonight. We get lots of horrible, irritating things all day and every day. And from our experience, we are 5.5 years in. I'm generally quite a happy guy. We had a bad thing happen. We hopefully haven't let it define us. We respect it. Our little pink badge, that's our Abbey dot. But we've sort of kept going, and I just want to share with you a couple of strategies. From my wife's world, there is, I could talk, well, no, she could talk for hours. 2 good key strategies that I felt kept us going positive, not for the sake of it, but positive for good reasons. So, when something bad happens, and it's a big when, from our scale to smaller stuff, mental illness, which is big, friends we're worried about, my big thing is to talk about it. Make yourself talk about it, ask for help. If you're asked how you are, respond, be honest. Talking about things does 2 very important things I've found. It makes you rationalize and analyze your own situation, articulating it. I talk a fair bit in my head, but actually saying the words gives you perspective. And I would encourage you, it also, I found, try to think accurately. The doom and gloom scenario is very easy to fall into, but it gives you pause to reflect. Okay, this is shit. Is everything shit? Not really sure, but think about it. The other thing, when you talk to people about it, you get an interaction, and slowly but surely you find out you're not the only one who's had this horror or a horror of that description. You're in a community of other humans who've survived, and it is very invigorating to know you're not alone. And I'm not proud of this emotion, but somehow knowing other people are in the shit as well makes yours feel a little bit better. It's true, it's not a great human trait, but that's the thing. We are not alone. Other people are going through it. That, again, you might not be a talker. I clearly am. But I encourage you, if you're going through hard times, find someone to talk to. It's a healthy exercise for you to go through, to quantify, and to relate to other people. The big one, which I think has a more day-to-day concept for me, is it's a mantra we use a lot. It's called accept the good. It sounds a little bit American tree-huggy stuff, but believe it or not, it's a very interesting concept. As humans, and I think men in particular, we have what's called a negativity bias. It makes us be wary of the worst-case scenario. Look out for the bad. Let's make sure we've got that covered. And over our evolution, it was quite handy when you could be eaten by saber-toothed tigers and shit like that. Generally, we don't have quite, although March the 15th, but generally our day-to-day doesn't require that amount of attention and stress. So it's funny you're talking about work to your wife. My wife used to ask me, I've been building for 20-odd years, 25 years now, how did your day go? And I could give her a great list of things that have pissed me off. Things that were late, subbies that didn't turn up, people who borrowed my drill and taken the battery that was fully charged, and I knew they were both charged. Concrete that cracked because we've soaked it for 7 days. All this stuff. Concrete that turns up too thick, too thin, wrong MPA. And she'd sort of, say, okay, yeah, great, lovely, and move away. The only good thing about that, she stopped asking me how my day went. That was, I can't really be talking about that. But it highlighted, particularly when we had our situation with Abby, accept the good. Even in your worst moments, there is good shit going on. We're just not, I think particularly men, we're not programmed to identify it. We should treat the good with the same respect we treat the bad. What did happen today that was good? Can you articulate it? With us, our 2 boys, Abby's older brother and sister, they were still there. They were good. We live in Christchurch, which, okay, it shakes a bit occasionally, but is a lovely place to live. We have a good community out in Sumner. We had good friends. We had help. We generally have good weather. We have the Crusaders. We've got Richie Moanga now. We've got so much good going on. All these little things are good things that we tend to go, yeah, whatever, that's a given. What about the bad? Well, that's not the way. We need to start putting the same amount of emphasis on the good as we do the bad. And it is a mindset. And believe it or not, even blokes, even builders, we can change that. It's just habit forming. So I sort of turned it around. On the rare occasion she did ask me about my day, I would try and find 3 good things that had happened that day. Deadly serious. And believe it or not, it's actually quite easy, because once you start thinking, that subby did turn up, that concrete didn't crack, that blade didn't shatter when I really needed it. Things do work out. We've just got to start ticking the box. Going, yeah, that was good. That was good. It builds us, it gives us some sort of defense and moves us away from immediately looking at the shit. I'm very keen to point out, this doesn't make the grief go away. It's not a cure-all, but our real world doesn't have them. It gives us the ability and hopefully the knowledge to cope, become more resilient, and not get knocked for 6 when bad things happen. So those are, again, two good things if I could leave you with. Talk about issues, engage with people who you think have got issues. I think it's a theme, and I've been delighted to hear it. It's good. And also, let's try and change our miserable git. I'm a whinging pom, I know anyway, but let's change that and try and look at positives and make that part of our daily thought process. Now, one last little tip. There is a stress reliever that is completely free, legal, and you can do it on your own. Well, in fact, there's two, but I'm going to tell you about the one that isn't in your bathroom. It's a simple, when those moments, driving, letdowns, annoyance, when you've been stupid, you've hit your thumb, breathing. And I know we hopefully all do it quite a lot, but it's a very simple exercise. And I'd like you to join in if you can be bothered. It's a 4-5 second cycle. So if you're ready, stand up, posture helps. Stomach's in if you can, shoulders out, breathe in, 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, out. 1, 2, 3. Can't do the talking bit. Fully out and in. Do that once or twice a day. It can save your bacon. It's really worth it. Thank you very much. Cheers.